Welcome into Redacted. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And on this show, we cover the stories the mainstream media largely ignores. We try to navigate this crazy clown world together. And we've got a lot of big stories to cover today on the show. Egypt has just declared beware of the airspace above Tehran. No airlines to fly in that direction. This is developing. We're watching that. Plus, what Vladimir Putin is now saying to NATO as Ukraine has almost exhausted all of its men. And NATO forces are now amassing in Poland. What is happening in the war in Ukraine? We are going to talk about that and much more.
Plus, Elon Musk, X, and Rumble are suing advertisers because they are trying to deplatform independent voices. We knew this. Now a new government report tells us what we already knew. And we're going to tell you what these companies are going to do about it so that we can continue to meet and have free speech. I'll do this one. Okay. Sure. Also, a new COVID study shows very limited. I'm going to talk around the things that I can say on this free speech platform. Effect of the COVID vaccine. We're going to talk about that and why the WHO is still saying to get a COVID vaccine every 12 months.
Yeah, and then we're going to, of course, be watching what's going on right now with the Iranian response to the Israeli assassination attempt. When will Iran attack? Will they attack? What is the next move? The ball is in their court. And former U.S. Marine, former UN weapons inspector Scott Ritter is going to join us to talk about that and much more on the show today. We want to let us know where you're joining us from around the world. Please let us know in the comments. We are streaming live on YouTube, on X, on Rumble. So good to see all of you guys today on this Wednesday. We got a lot of news to get to, but first
we want to tell you about our friends over at Fortress Debt because they are an app and a platform that can help you manage your debt. Now, this is a horrible week in finances if you are invested in the stock market, but if you are not and you're just trying to manage your daily life, inflation raging out of control, and you just don't know what to do, well, of course, no one's taught this in high school, right? At least not in America. So you may not know where to turn. That's where Fortress can help you. They are a revolutionary AI tool designed to help guide you out of debt swiftly and effectively. So here's how it works. You share your debt situation with Fortress, and then Fortress uses this to tailor a plan just for you to help you plan and execute becoming debt-free. So dream about that for a second. No debt in your life. Step 3 is just to become debt-free in a matter of months. When you follow Fortress's advice, you can become debt-free faster than ever. But that's the best part, is that Fortress Debt not only provides you with a personalized plan, but it walks you through it step by step, basically holding your hand in the process. So you have a financial advisor that wants you to be debt-free, unlike someone maybe that you would pay for from the big banks. So check them out today. Use our special link at redacted.inc/Fortress. Try the app out right now. There's over 75,000 people who have already signed up. And the best part, again, is that it's free because you don't need to pay to get out of debt. You need to get out of debt. So try it right now. Redacted.inc/Fortress.
All right, well, Ukraine's dirty little secret is now out of the bag. 600,000 Ukrainian men have been killed in that war. That, by the way, is a conservative number. I've spoken to military brass that believe it's well over 700,000 dead. And the Biden administration is aware that Ukraine is about to fall to Russia unless it puts NATO boots on the ground to fill the ranks of dead soldiers. Some shit is about to hit the fan. And over the past few days, Poland, NATO have amassed tens of thousands of soldiers along the Polish border with Ukraine. Why? That's because something big is coming. Poland, of course, worried that they are about to be invaded by tens of thousands of Ukrainian refugees. You saw what happened at the beginning of the war when that country was changed forever as a result of millions of Ukrainian refugees that landed in that country. Many, of course, have now returned, but now the concern is that they would flood the border. Now, Zelensky this morning, the authoritarian ruler of Ukraine, Zelensky this morning slammed the United States, slammed the West, and demanded once again a NATO no-fly zone over Ukraine. This is something he's been asking for years. He called on NATO to stop sitting on the sidelines, start shooting down Russian aircraft, start shooting down Russian drones. He also said that the Western countries are too concerned about escalating the conflict. Yeah, we're concerned about starting World War III. We don't want a nuclear confrontation with Russia. Imagine that. Basically calling us wimps who are worried about World War III. We're wimps. Go ahead, Phil.
So sorry, real quick. Where does he think World War III is going to take place? Where is it going to start? If he's got a problem with Russia invading Ukraine, what happens when everybody is fighting in Ukraine? Like that doesn't make things better.
I don't think he thought that through.
And I don't think he much cares, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't think he much cares that his own country, of course, has been used now as a massive aircraft carrier to begin with. All the land is sold off to BlackRock, and
most Ukrainian men have been conscripted. In fact, just today, Ukraine said it found 16 men in a meat freezer trying to escape the draft. He does not care about the lives of his people. I am very comfortable saying that declaratively.
Yeah.
He's an asshole.
So he's calling us wimps who are worried about World War III. And of course, we're wimps and we will likely do his bidding because that's what we've done so far. The United States has done his bidding, even though it's taken a few months to do it. F-16s, we're not going to do it. Okay, we'll do it. All the weapons you want, HIMARS, yeah, we'll do it. We'll do all of it. Because, after all, we just do your bidding. Just like we'll do Israel's bidding, by the way. Netanyahu says that the United States must join Israel to combat Iran. So we're going to do all of these things, and we're going to send soldiers. The Biden administration has been laying the groundwork to bring back a draft in the United States in order to fight Russia and Iran simultaneously. I just saw someone in our Rumble chat who just said, where in the Constitution does it mention a conscription of American service members? Where in the Constitution? Point me to it. I'd love to see that in the U.S. Constitution. Military experts are telling the Mockingbird media that, by the way, that sending tanks and F-16s to Ukraine is not enough. Manpower, boots on the ground, is the only way to win. They need the manpower to man these weapons. No amount of drones is going to win this thing. And Ukraine is in dire straits right now. Ukraine's last-ditch failed offensive over the past 48 hours into Russia officially collapsed this morning, not too long before our show just started, leaving 300 Ukrainians dead. And Vladimir Putin commented on this move into the Kursk region. Ukraine launched attacks on civilians in Kursk, hitting homes. They targeted ambulances and other civilian areas, but that has now collapsed. And Russia stopped that advance. Russian President Putin just speaking a short time ago on this advance in the Kursk region. Listen.
I have to begin with the developments in the Kursk region. As we know, the Kiev regime is making another large-scale provocation, shooting indiscreetly, using all kinds of weaponry, including missile weaponry, targeting civilian buildings, ambulances,
homes, civilian infrastructure. As Moon of Alabama points out today, in 1943, during World War II, the German attack on Kursk was launched for a similar reason, to try to divert Russian forces away from attacking in the Donetsk region. And it ended in utter defeat. So basically trying to distract Russian forces up in Kursk instead of down in Donetsk, in the Donbass. Even pro-Ukrainian commentators who love Ukraine, are all about the Ukrainian side of the war, are shocked at how stupid this move was. Again, as Moon of Alabama posted, a total waste of men and resources. Here's what the commenter writes. The situation in the Pokrovsk direction is critical, with defenses in several areas collapsed. And yet to stabilize, largely due to a shortage of personnel, diverting nearly a brigade to launch an assault on the Kursk Oblast, which lacks strategic sense, and it borders on mental disability, basically calling Ukrainian military officials mentally unstable, mentally disabled at this point. But more importantly, we just got some stunning news over the past few days out of Ukraine. And this is really stunning. According to a new report, the Ukrainian armed forces have been drafting around 30,000 troops monthly since May. Now, on the face of it, you say, how is that possible? They have no men left, right? How is that possible? Well, this is a staggering number and a clear indication of the dire straits in which Ukraine finds itself. Well, the New York Times separately confirmed this number. Ukraine ramps up mobilization, hoping to bolster battlefield strength. So where is this? How is this happening? Well, this isn't just like some amazing mainstream narrative like, wow, these men are just lining up to volunteer. No, these men are not just deciding to enlist to fight against Russia. Ukraine's conscription law now makes it mandatory. Of course, that was passed just recently. And also, you'll recall that Ukraine also tried to block you from seeing videos like this. If you take videos of these conscription body snatchers grabbing men off the streets and throwing them into paddy wagons and taking them off to the front lines, if you live in Ukraine, social media police will come to your house. You're not allowed to do this anymore. So that's why a lot of these videos have now dried up. You're not allowed to see them anymore. But now these body snatchers are out in full force. 30,000 per month they're rounding up off the streets. Do you have a disability? Who cares? Walk with a limp? Doesn't matter. Are you mentally disabled? Doesn't matter. We'll throw you in the wagon and we'll take you off to the front lines. Are you old? It doesn't matter. Are you too young? It doesn't matter. Do you support your family and your family's relying on your one income and you can't go to war? Doesn't matter. We're going to throw you into a wagon and you're going to go fight. That's exactly what's happening. The body snatchers are out in full force all over the country, grabbing men off the streets just like never before, dragging them into vans, forcing them to go fight, young men, old men. It doesn't matter anymore at all. This is a nation that is absolutely desperate right now to fill its meat grinder ranks. Speaking of meat, this desperate conscription drive has led to some appalling scenes like this. According to reporting from RT, there are now meat trucks operating with Ukrainian men trying to get out of Ukraine, hiding in frozen meat trucks like this one, like in the body, in the corpses of frozen meat, trying to bury themselves within this. Here you can see these men being rounded up. And so now they're stopping these meat trucks as Ukrainian draft dodgers are trying to get out, trying to get into Moldova and trying to get into Poland and other countries right now. Military recruiters are stopping these meat trucks, and instead of finding all this frozen meat in there, they're having to dig through and find all these men that are trying to escape the draft right now. Now, why should we, here in the United States, care about the conscription practices of countries thousands of miles away? Because, my friends, what is happening in Ukraine could very well foreshadow what might be happening here at home in the United States. The most recent edition of the U.S. Army War College's academic journal includes a section that's titled Casualties, Replacements, and Reconstitutions. Now, we've covered what the Biden administration has been doing towards a draft, and I think it's worth repeating today. And I think, the Mises Institute, a libertarian Mises Institute, really, did a great article on this last year that we featured here. Just let this sink in for a moment. The thought of returning to a military draft, a system that forces our young citizens into combat roles, is being seriously considered by Pentagon brass. The context provided within this essay notes that in the event of a large-scale conflict, the U.S. military could face a staggering 3,600 casualties per day, requiring 800 replacements per day. For context, the U.S. suffered about 50,000 casualties over 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so the essay suggests that such a number could be reached in just 2 weeks of intensive combat in a large-scale war. In other words, facing Russia head-on would leave us with 50,000 casualties in just 2 weeks of fighting. Unbelievable. So they need a draft. They need a conscription. They need to be able to get as many men as possible into these roles, into these ranks. And you'll recall, of course, the Biden administration lowered military standards and opened it up to, hey, you're transgender? Come on in. We'll welcome you. You have lower fitness standards? Come on in. We'll welcome you into the U.S. military. We need them right now. The military is already grappling with a significant recruiting shortfall. Last year alone, the Army missed its recruitment goal by 15,000 soldiers, and it's projected to fall short by an additional 20,000 this year. So a draft is honestly the only way they're going to be able to stand up to Russia, put boots on the ground in Ukraine, be able to stand up to Iran. Oh, and by the way, what are your plans for China? You want to mix that into this as well? Turns out using drones, using aircraft is not the answer and is not the solution, and you are going to lose. So if you want to walk away and lose Ukraine completely, then you can do that. Otherwise, they're going to have to put boots on the ground. As Colonel Douglas McGregor points out, Putin does not want a conflict with NATO. He said that repeatedly, but it looks like he's about to get one.
President Putin wants to avoid a direct confrontation with the United States and NATO. He's never wanted it. we're the ones that goaded him into attacking into eastern Ukraine to begin with. We're the ones that wanted to place forces right on his border with the goal of attacking him. We're the ones that wanted to place missile systems there. So I think it's very obvious that under the circumstances, he could have attacked with any number of different weapon systems a long time ago, and he hasn't done it. I hope he can continue to exercise restraint, because I think we're nearing the end of this tragedy, frankly.
So there you go. That's what's happening right now. The U.S. Involved in this, and we could see a major development here with boots on the ground, and and the U.S. military realizing, of course, that in fact they do not have the opportunity to win this war without having boots on the ground. They cannot do it with aircraft alone. They cannot do it with drones alone. So we will see what happens in Russia and in Ukraine over the next 48 hours. We'll see.
Well, we have more news to get to. We're going to talk about Elon Musk and X and Rumble suing advertisers for trying to censor speech. We're also going to talk about a new COVID study that doesn't have very good numbers for the COVID vaccine. We're going to explore this data in the parameters that we still can. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at the Wellness Company, because they make a contagion emergency kit that will help protect you from, of course, an uncertain global climate right now. I mean, we don't know what's happening right now. We have assassination attempts on leaders. We have coup attempts on government, cybersecurity threats. It's just, we don't know how much we will enter an unstable time. And if the pandemic taught us anything, it's that we can't rely on anything at all. So that's why we have ordered the Contagion Emergency Kit for our family from the Wellness Company, and you can too. It's not a joke. It's just a place for you to store medicines that you may not be able to get. Now, we already saw that there was a Tylenol shortage during the pandemic, but what if you needed something a little bit more serious? Well, this is where you can keep things that you may need, like a Z-Pak or Tamiflu or hydrochloroquine, things that you just never know when you're going to need it, and when you need it, you need it. Every family in America needs at least one of these. It's like having an urgent care in your home. So get yours now for as low as the cost of a single doctor's visit. And at the end of the day, again, just having these on hand means you don't have to worry about it. So be proactive and prepared. You can get yours at twc.health/redacted, and you can save $30 at checkout with the code redacted. So once again, the code is redacted, and you can go to twc.health/redacted. Well, Elon Musk is suing advertiser groups for antitrust violation, because here is what they do is they find content they don't like on X or Rumble or YouTube or Spotify. So if you're guilty of wrongthink, like questioning the COVID vaccine, questioning lockdowns, questioning gender ideology, any of these things they don't like, what they do is they find that speech, they write bullshit reports saying that that's hate speech, and then they go and tell advertisers, look at this report, you better not be advertising on these platforms. Well, these platforms are saying that's illegal. That's an antitrust violation. And Rumble is also suing for the same reason. So again, what these agencies do is publish these crap reports they call hateful about hate speech or brand safety, and then they pressure advertisers to not put their money in these places. We actually have been featured in these places before because we are critical of what they call green solutions like electric vehicles and solar panels. So they call us climate haters, and they try to deplatform YouTube, or at least YouTube ads around our show. So, or they call us Russian propaganda or whatever it is. Now, X says that this hurts their business and this is an antitrust violation. Here is the lawsuit. You can see the case number at the top in case you want to follow this for yourself or read it. Here, the next one is Rumble's suit, and they are very similar. So I just think that you should have this. You can screenshot it, look it up for yourself. So, well, who they are suing is the World Federation of Advertisers, Unilever, Mars, CVS, and Orsted. And all of these companies operate under this umbrella corporation called GARM. We've discussed them before. They're the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, Responsible My Foot. The brands here's a little snapshot of all the brands that are part of this conglomeration. And, you know, I had considered like, oh, I'm going to boycott all of them. It's really hard to live in the modern life and not use any of these companies. What they call themselves is a cross-industry initiative established by these advertisers, meaning they want to make sure none of these ad dollars go to what they consider as wrongthink. And they say they are the protectors then of what they call brand safety, meaning you better not advertise on these platforms because they may be unsafe or harmful to society. Here's just one example of what they call harmful content. They're saying anything that questions gender ideology, any debate about social issues, things that are insensitive. So even if they find anything on Twitter that's insensitive, then they're going to show this to advertisers and say, see, you don't want your ad revenue here. Twitter is an insensitive place. Any place with misinformation, well, we're going to talk about what they consider misinformation. Now, a lot of what they do was made public in the House of Representatives because they had asked them to produce documents about their practices last year. At first, GARM just ignored the subpoena. Eventually, they handed over the documents, and the House compiled this report here called GARM's Harm: How the World's Biggest Brands Seek to Control Online Speech. And here is what they found and just how powerful this group's ad dollars is. It says, this is from the House report, says that through GARM's large corporations, advertising agencies, and industry associations, they participate in boycotts and other coordinated action to demonetize platforms, podcasts, news outlets, and other content deemed disfavorable by GARM. They represent roughly 90% of global advertising spend, or almost $1 trillion annually. So they have quite the reach. Pretty much every advertiser checks with them and says, can we advertise here now? There's a lot of people here. Should we go there? And they'll say, we don't like what they're doing around X, Y, Z. And they'll just suppress these companies in order to choke out the platforms that they cannot control. Here's the CEO of X, Linda Yaccarino. She said that this report from Congress really surprised her.
Hey, everybody. I was shocked by the evidence uncovered by the House Judiciary Committee that a group of companies organized a systematic illegal boycott against X. It is just wrong. And that is why we are taking action. Today, we filed an antitrust lawsuit against the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, 4 of its key members, and the World Federation of Advertisers. These organizations targeted our company and you, our users. The evidence and facts are on our side. They conspired to boycott X, which threatens our ability to thrive in the future. That puts your global town square, the one place that you can express yourself freely and openly, at long-term risk. People are hurt when the marketplace of ideas is constricted. No small group of people should be able to monopolize what gets monetized.
Okay, but here's the question. Isn't it your right as a company to boycott whoever you want to? It is. But what if one of your businesses is seeking to sink another business on purpose by poisoning relationships to other clients? Isn't that antitrust? I thought it would be tort, but I'm not a lawyer, so that was not mentioned in these cases. If you understand the difference, maybe you can tell me. Twitter, or X, alleges, though, that this is an antitrust violation. And in fact, the House report shows that they're not the only ones suffering, that there could be other plaintiffs besides Rumble, such as Spotify. YouTube would be one of them. They're not going to do it because they're a GARM company, or even Fox News. Take a look at this. What they allege is that this is a violation of the Sherman Act. And what they do, like for instance on Elon Musk and Twitter, is that as soon as Elon Musk took over, they told all of their members to stop all paid advertisement just because Elon Musk bought Twitter. Just because of that, not even anything that had been said yet. And then later they bragged about taking on Elon Musk and that they had sunk Twitter's revenue by 80%. They also talked about how they went after Spotify and Joe Rogan specifically, because Joe Rogan had said that young people may not need a COVID vaccine if they were young and healthy. And in fact, they even admitted the antitrust implication when they said about Spotify that this this Mr. Rakowitz from GARM said, well, we can't really publicly advise to all clients to do this because that could get us into hot water. Well, they are now because of anti-competitive and collusive behavior. So he knows he's doing it. He's doing it without doing it. He's saying, I'm not doing this, but, right? So he's doing it. And he says, instead of telling them what to do, we're going to help brands formulate a point of view. That is still collusion. It's not any better. We're still doing it. That also points out here, this House report, that they use the same strategy for outlets like Fox News, The Daily Wire, and Breitbart. So there are many plaintiffs that could get involved here. So far right now, it's only X and Rumble. So again, what we have here is political ideologues deciding to deplatform views that they don't like. But also, in this last screen, did you catch that reference to the Global Disinformation Context, or GDI? What they said is, and the bottom paragraph is that we use the GDI we use their reports in order to get advertisers to not advertise. Well, guess who funds the GDI? The US State Department, through at least $330 million of taxpayer donations. So the State Department is deciding who to call out for hate speech or misinformation. And then these private companies are saying, okay, well, we won't advertise then. So they're just trying to keep making up crap report after crap report, and then using these crap reports to censor people online. And when they don't get their way, then they try to choke out the business of the platforms that allow them to speak freely. So not only that, though, Rumble says that it's not just taking away our platforms or our ability to speak or our, helping to elevate this content. It's also increasing ad prices because it's anti-competitive, because these groups decide the ad revenue on only content that they like, making ads more expensive because it only is going to a certain number of, so say you're ABC or CNN and you're guilty of producing the type of content they like, you can demand more money because you are a government mouthpiece, basically. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So X is suing for money, which could be considerable, given that they're saying, look, we've lost this much ad revenue. They're saying our participation has gone up, our user engagement, our users have gone up, our video platforms have gone up, but our ad revenue has gone down only because of these. So if they can prove it, then these advertisers and these groups will have to pay them money because of this lawsuit. Rumble not only wants that money, but they also want a permanent injunction to halt these practices, meaning a ruling so they cannot do it again, making this illegal. I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm rooting for them. I hope these advertising groups get nuked because they have proven that they are wrong on the issues that they bully about, and they are the enemies of free speech. But let me know what you think of that. So I'm rooting for them. I hope they have really awesome lawyers.
Awesome. All right. Well, we've got more news to get to here on the show in just moments. We're going to look at this COVID study because, stop me if you've heard this before. Yes. Well, we got new information about COVID, and we've got new information about the vaccines. And it turns out there was a lot of phony data that was being flown around. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. Yeah, I know, it's shocking. And then we were set to have former UN weapons inspector Scott Ritter on the show. But we just learned that his house has been raided in Bethlehem, New York area. The New York Post reporting that. He was on apparently the George Motz show, and they came to his house and raided his house. Now we're still trying to get more information about that. You'll recall a few weeks ago we had him on the show and we were talking to him about, and he explained what happened when he tried to fly to Russia. Yeah. And he was going to go there for that St. Petersburg Economic Forum, and he was set to, I think, speak there. And the State Department showed up at the airport before he was set to board the plane, and they took his passport away from him. Yeah. And I think they did the same. They did that to another individual who was also going to be flying to Moscow as well. So we don't know at this point. They said, of course, the only thing the FBI will say is that it's part of an ongoing investigation. He's been an outspoken critic of the Biden administration. He's been an outspoken critic of the wars in Gaza,
everywhere.
in Ukraine,
In Iraq.
in Iraq. So, of course, we don't know at this point what's going on there. So, we will try to have Scott back on and find out what the hell's happening here. But the Delmar home, a former UN weapons inspector, has been raided by the FBI, according to the New York Post. And we'll wait to find out more about that. But we do have more news to get to here on your Wednesday. Again, we're going to talk about this COVID study. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at Lear Capital, because right now, I mean, you saw what's happening in the markets. You saw over the week what's happening in the stock market, and fear and turmoil right now. Japanese yen suddenly showing more value, then everything plummets as a result of it. You're seeing this big move right now into real assets, and making sure that you have gold, silver, real estate in your portfolio is now more important than ever, than having your entire retirement wiped away as a result of this. And our friends at Lear Capital can help you get started investing in precious metals. They are the go-to company in the United States to be able to, if you want to have gold coins, gold bars, silver bars, silver coins shipped right to your house, you can store them in your gun safe. You can do that. Or, of course, you can have them held off-site in a secure location. They can handle that all for you. And the best part about Lear, I think this is like the really shining example of why Lear is so great, is that they will help you set up a self-directed IRA. Most people think of like an IRA that you get maybe through your work or your employment, a 401k, etc. But Lear can actually help you self-direct an IRA, and they'll help you do it all on the phone. And what that means is you can then invest in precious metals inside of your individual retirement account. And it can grow tax-free. That's right. It can grow tax-free. Most people have no idea about a self-directed account. So call them today, 1-800-613-3557. And they have a fantastic guide that you can learn about with their IRAs. So they'll give you a free IRA guide that you can download. You can read it yourself, but they will provide that for you when you give them a call. So they'll walk you through step by step how to set up your self-directed IRA account. 1-800-613-3557 for your free guide, or go to LearRedacted.com. That's the website to go to, LearRedacted.com.
Well, a new study shows something we already knew, that COVID deaths were overreported during the pandemic, and the COVID vaccine did not seem to have much of a benefit of slowing or stopping the pandemic as we know it. Why the pandemic stopped? Because governments decided that it could stop. That's what we know for sure now. Here is the study. I want to encourage you to seek it out for yourself. It's not a very catchy title there, but again, what we're looking at is correlation right now. So it's important to point that out. But most of the data that we have, when the media throws around things like, oh, the COVID vaccine worked or saved lives, most of that is pretty correlated too, and also very shaky. Now, what they did in this study is they researched 125 countries and their vaccination rollout programs. And what they found was, quote, no systematic or statistically significant trends showing that vaccination campaigns in 2020 and 2021 reduced all-cause mortality. In fact, they were able to show that excess deaths went up, and that those deaths that we saw could not be associated with COVID deaths. They calculated something new called death per injection, and they found this here highlighted on the screen. I'm going to let you read it because I'm still under the rules of YouTube, which say that I must not contradict anything that the World Health Organization says. Is what I want to say about that. So what they're saying, they're not saying that the vaccine caused this number of deaths. This is me here not saying that. What they're saying is that they calculated each excess death per injection, including boosters. Now, this is interesting too, is that they found higher deaths associated with age, which we knew, but also, this is strange, higher deaths associated with people living in poverty. Now, that's interesting to think about. Why would people living in poverty be more prone to excess deaths? It could be to access to healthy behaviors like gyms or healthier food or healthier living environments. We know from Bjorn Lundberg's research that people people who are wealthier live with less respiratory diseases because they have better ventilation. Could be a number of factors, right? But poverty is kind of a new one. I don't think we've talked about that very much in the deaths around the pandemic. Now, what researchers say is that when you actually study pandemic deaths, you cannot conclude that they were caused by a respiratory virus. Take a look at this. It said these things allow us to conclude that the COVID period during 2020 and 2023, excess all-cause mortality in the world, is incompatible with a pandemic viral respiratory disease as primary cause of death. So it has to be something else causing diseases, right? And so what we know is that the vaccine rollout did not stop the spread of COVID. We have no data that it slowed down respiration or deaths, or I'm sorry, hospitalization or deaths. So why does the media always tell us that vaccines save lives? Well, we showed you the two major studies that they use for this on the CDC, the New York Times. Everybody uses these two studies. This one first only shows the vaccine and low rates of intubation and death. And again, this is a very strange study because it compared the original COVID vaccine with rates of death and ventilation on mechanical ventilators during the Omicron wave, which was weird because the original COVID vaccine was not made for Omicron, so it's strange. Also, they studied immunocompetent people, immuno-incompetent people, but they don't account for previous infection, which is a huge omission because we know that previous infection provides superior immunity, and even their own results here suggested that protection wanes. So it was only, so we can't really, again, call these vaccines because it's such limited time frame. Also, the media uses this study published just last year that estimates the number of lives saved by the COVID vaccine. This study, to my mind, proves nothing. What they did was took expected deaths numbers from their own math models and then said, because we never reached the number we pulled out of our butts, that means the vaccine did that. And again, this study that I'm showing you here was funded by the WHO. Read it for yourself. So given that more and more research is coming out showing that the vaccine did not do the things that they said it would and did do things that they're saying it didn't, maybe we can expect some apologies or something. One other thing I found interesting from this study that we're talking about today is that it blows up this whole protect the elderly bit, because take a look at this. It says that there was an increase, again, this is tentative conclusion, that there was an increase with age and excess all-cause mortality by population consistent with age-dominant frailty rather than infection and the limit of high virulence. So we didn't protect old people. In fact, we hurt them more. But we were told we were doing all those things to protect old people. So that's weird, right? Even with all of this, you guys, even with all this data that is damning to my mind, the WHO still this week said that everyone needs to get a COVID vaccine every 12 months. This is Dr. Maria van Kerkhove from the WHO speaking about the COVID vaccine in the United Nations this week. This week. It's unbelievable that someone would have the balls to do this. She says that COVID cases are high, and here's what we all have to do.
It is important to take measures to reduce risk of infection and severe disease, including ensuring that you have had a COVID-19 vaccination dose in the last 12 months, especially if you are in an at-risk group. Over the last 2 years, we've seen an alarming decline in vaccination coverage, especially among health workers and people over 60, two of the most at-risk groups. This urgently needs to be turned around.
Okay, so does she say that COVID is killing or hospitalizing more people? No. Does she say that a COVID vaccine will stop these things? No. In fact, the press release around this appearance said that, well, if you don't get it, then the virus could mutate and then that could be more dangerous. But it doesn't make any sense because the vaccine doesn't stop the virus from spreading. So it will keep spreading and mutating. But who is this a problem for, that people are not getting the COVID vaccine? I don't see it as a problem for the general population, Could it be a problem for the WHO?
Could it be a problem
And
for
the
big
people
pharma?
who fund it? Yeah. So
of course.
anyway, let us know what you think of that. They're still trying to push this on. It's not like, oh, you guys, COVID's old news. Clearly it's not. They're still saying this stuff, even as more and more damning research comes out. So let us know what you think of that.
All right. Well, we have more news to get to. We're going to talk. We're going to do some super chats today, and we're going to take your questions on this Wednesday, August 7th. We are live. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Rumble. We are live on X right now. And we've got just a lot of crazy news. Scott Ritter, former UN weapons inspector, U.S. Marine, was going to join us here on the show today to talk about what's going on in the Middle East. But seems like circumstances have gotten in the way of what's happening right now. And we don't know. But apparently, according to the New York Post, his home has just been raided by the FBI. You'll recall a couple of weeks ago, we covered here on the show, and he was a guest here on the show. We asked him about when he was about to fly to Russia for the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, and the State Department stopped him on at the airport and took his passport, confiscated his passport. And an unbelievable moment, a U.S. citizen going to fly on his own free will to speak as part of an economic forum, had his passport taken. Unbelievable. Apparently he was just on with George Galloway on the Moat Show, or was about to be, and wasn't able to do that show. Yesterday he spoke out vehemently against the war in Gaza, and had some really harsh things to say about Israel. That was yesterday when he spoke out against Israel, and then today the FBI is at his house. I mean, I'm not saying the things are connected at all, but anyway, we're waiting to find out more about that. We're going to take your questions here in a minute. Let's open it up for some super chats today and some Rumble rants on this crazy Wednesday, this crazy August 7th Wednesday. We are just a few days away from the Democratic National Convention. J.D. Vance and his team just showed up on the tarmac and basically confronted Kamala Harris and Tim Walz on Air Force Two, and tried to basically ask him, why the heck are you not speaking to reporters? It was kind of a wild scene on the tarmac. Crazy. And J.D. Vance said, that'll be my airplane soon. We are heading for, it's crazy right now. But first, I want to tell you about our friends who are American Financing. The ability to provide for your family has changed quite a bit in the last couple of years. When you go shopping, you're getting less, but spending the same. You have to decide what to buy, what to do without. And when you get to check out, you're swiping that credit card, putting you in a never-ending cycle of credit card interest accruing every month. There's got to be a better way. Well, there is, and it is with American Financing. If you're a homeowner, they will take out that equity that you've built up and allow you to pay off that high-interest debt. You're basically trading one financial product for another. And the equity in your home, if you're sitting on equity in your home, I like to say you can't eat equity, right? So if you're sitting on equity in your home, why not then use and leverage that equity in order to pay off high interest debt that you're carrying? It'll just free up your mind. It'll make you feel better. You'll clean up all of that excess debt that you've got. And American Financing, they're saving their customers an average of $854 a month. And they're closing in as little as 10 days. So start today. You may be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. Call American Financing today. That's 866-890-8434. That's 866-890-8434. Or visit americanfinancing.net/redacted. So NMLS 182334 NMLSconsumeraccess.org. Have to put in that little NMLS disclaimer there for you, because they are offering a mortgage then. Okay, hope you guys are doing well here on this Wednesday. David and Philip, how are you guys doing? It's kind of it's really a crazy day.
Yeah, it's been a crazy day. David's not here, so he's packing stuff up. So it's just you and me. It's just the two of us.
I thought I heard David earlier. Maybe I didn't. Oh, just in text. Okay, I'm just like just seeing him through text here. A lot of people in the chat saying, Jason Fowler says, free Scott Ritter. Yeah, I have no confirmation on that, whether or not he's like anything beyond just them raiding his house. I have no idea. I mean, this is the tactics right now, but I have no idea. So I don't want to speak out of turn on that till I can say something more about that. Craig King says, Clayton and Natalie, Egypt told the airlines to avoid flights in Iranian airspace this morning. Or Thursday. So does this mean the attack is coming? Yeah, we reported that at the beginning of the show, and of course we don't know. And as you know, as I'm sure as I'm sure we'll find out here very shortly, what Iran's intentions are. Of course, the ball is in their court at this moment. Everyone's sort of waiting and watching. What are you going to do? Putin called up the Iranian government and said, please limit any civilian casualties in your attack. Russia has also supplied a lot of weapons to Iran. The United States battle carrier, Marine Expeditionary Units, aircraft carriers are there right now. The United States has said they will just be providing defensive support for Israel. But if of course the United States fires on Iran, then all bets are off on that. Yemen and Houthi rebels will likely try to take out some of these American aircraft carriers. They would love nothing more than that spectacle of a small little pirate boat taking down an American aircraft carrier. We'll see what it's really, really troubling. But American soldiers and sailors right now are sitting ducks in this craziness in the Middle East. Let's see here. We got a super chat from Anwar. Says, remember when they said, even if it only saves one life, as they propel us into World War III? That's right. Let's see. New member, Supernova 101. Welcome to the Rebellion. Nice to see you guys here. Thank you guys for joining us. Does anybody have any other?
I just to kind of get back to that point I had made earlier, though, that just blows my mind that Ukraine would be pushing for NATO to enter Ukraine and start an active war in their backyard. Like that just, I don't get that at all. Like I can see them wanting weapons to keep fighting, if that's what they want to do, great. But why would you want to start like a major world war? I mean, how did that work for Europe? They didn't want that, but it happened. Like,
maybe they think of it like the Olympics. Like, hey, if we get the Olympic Games in our city, we'll get billions of dollars in infrastructure development, So, hey, bring the war. Maybe that's the new version of the Olympics. Like, bring the war here to Ukraine. You can destroy our country, and then BlackRock and Vanguard will own all the land and rebuild it. And we'll get this brand new infrastructure, brand new facilities, brand new subways and trains and apartment complexes and everything else. We'll be in debt to the IMF for the rest of our existence, but that's okay. We'll be modern, and I'm being paid off by these people anyway. I mean, the whole government is corrupt. How many people are getting kickbacks from these relationships, right?
I was going to say, I guess that approach is easier than actually cleaning up the corruption in your government and getting official, like actual investors interested in. But, I guess,
yeah.
Or you could start a world war.
I don't know. Zainara Lone Moon, thank you for your $2 Rumble rant. Says, I very much enjoy your show. Why is that? Why is that Kamala Harris? Oh, I thought that's where it ended. Very much enjoy your show. Why is it that Kamala Harris considered eligible to run for president? She is the product of two non-citizens and does not meet the framers' definition of natural born. I mean, I guess you could say anchor baby, but she's technically a citizen, right? I mean, she's born here. So I don't know the legality of that and how that would, I don't know. I think that's a distraction. I mean, she's the candidate. Who cares at this point? The point is they're going to do everything in their power using the corporate media to try to sell you on this candidate. And it's up to you as a voter to vote, and make a change and do what you can. But if again, they're going to sell you a bill of goods on her like they're currently trying to do and rewrite her history on the border and all of this. Really disturbing. Miss Stacy Lynn, thank you for your $20 Rumble rant. Clayton, why do you think Kamala Harris is refusing to acknowledge her East Indian heritage? And do you think it's disrespectful to East Indians in America? I don't know. I mean, I think she's a chameleon, and I think she's playing to whomever she thinks will get her elected. So by sort of narrowing her scope, saying that she's East Indian, maybe makes her somehow less palatable. I have no idea. So I think if she feels like she can say she's black and that's what she wants to play up, then she can play that up and try to go into Philadelphia and do rallies in Philadelphia and say, see, I'm one of you. I have no idea why someone would like play down there or fake their race. It's like was it Salazar? What was her name? The woman who changed, like she was white, but she tried to be black, or she pretended to be black. Oh
yeah, I don't remember her name.
It's like, I don't get it. Here we are. Here we go. According to Jeremy Reeves says, according to Redacted, today is the last day we are alive. It's all over today. Oh, Jeremy, I never said that, but you could. I think it's maybe we should live like that every day. You know, hug your kids, take care of your families, be kind to your neighbors, live like it's your last day. But who knows what the hell's about to happen with? I mean, as I spoke to Larry Johnson yesterday, former CIA agent, he said he's never seen it in all of his years as volatile as it is right now. It is a absolutely volatile moment, and he's never seen it as bad as it is right now. Think about it. You have Russia providing weapons to Iran, which is about to attack Israel, and probably a devastating attack. You have the United States with U.S. aircraft carriers, thousands of soldiers, Americans, in the Middle East, Marine Expeditionary Forces, etc., in that region. You have American forces in Africa, basically going toe-to-toe with Russian forces in Africa. And then you have NATO and American forces also in Ukraine battling Russia. I mean, have you ever seen it more fraught? So, you know, I think, and look at the markets and look what they're trying to do with us right now, pushing us into another pandemic, a bird flu pandemic as the fall unfolds, you know, for vaccines. And I mean, in an election year, it's absolutely crazy. So what can you do right now? You've got to just, you know, hug your family, be close, be kind, and not let these people take advantage of you and not be fooled by it. I feel like, you know, that's what we try to do on this show, is try to navigate our way through all this propaganda, false flags. I really try to call out as many false flags as we can on this show when we see them. Are they going to use American aircraft carriers and pretend that Iran hit it? Or somebody else hit it, and they'll use that to drag us into a war? They've done it before. Need I remind you, I have my USS Liberty hat sitting right here. You know, like, fool me once, right? I mean, we've done it before. How many false flags do we need before everyone wakes up and says, I mean, how many times have they done it? The USS Maine, the Gulf of Tonkin, the USS Liberty, right on, and 9/11. How many more, like, false flags do you need before you realize that they are playing us, right? So just don't fall for it. And so hopefully we can call these things out and get attention on these things. It foils their plans, I hope. Anyway, that's what I think about it. Supernova, thank you for your $5 super chat. Putin doesn't want Iran to go to war because they want all of the ammunition and rockets. I'm sure Russia does not want a regional war. No, anybody who's clear-headed would not want a regional war. But the United States wants, I mean, listen to the United States senators like Lindsey Graham and others. They absolutely want a war with Iran. They've wanted it for a long time. And so does Netanyahu. Netanyahu has come to Washington repeatedly to ask us to basically go to war against Iran. Don't believe me? Go back and watch his congressional testimony where he literally points out the need to have regime change in Iran. And he wants the United States' help to do it. And he just doubled down on that in the past 24 hours. So there are people that want a war and there are people that don't want a war. Anything else interesting coming in here, Philip, that you see? Hey, Lady Trucker, $5 says, hey, Redacted, 25th month rebel. 25 months you've been a rebel? That's awesome. Thank you for being a rebel here and joining us, Lady Trucker, Lady T Trucker. Thank you for being a rebel. And it's, you can become a Redacted rebel as well. I mean, free, just subscribe. And then, you can join we have a monthly program. Again, you can choose whatever you want to do there. We have a community. You can join our community at redacted.inc. But thank you, Lady T Trucker. You're amazing. Anything else here? Gof AI says FBI rated Scott Ritter fights B1v1 cowards. Big Show says I like Doritos. I like Doritos as well. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Doritos. Mary Gerner says I do not consent. The whole Ritter previous thing that happened, he explained it all. He's explained it multiple times, and I think the way that it was explained was that it was a setup. He was warned that if he spoke out against what the government was doing with regards to Iraq and the weapons, that they would basically, he was told flat out that they will throw the CIA at you and they will come after you. Be prepared. He's spoken out about this. I think he was on Jimmy Dore where he went through point by point and explained all of that. That's how they ruin people's lives. But I don't know more about it than what he's addressed. But again, if you're just joining us, former UN weapons inspector, former U.S. Marine Scott Ritter's home was just raided by the FBI in New York. And they said all they will say is it's part of an ongoing investigation. And of course, again, a few weeks ago here on the show, we talked to him about he was at the airport about to fly to the St. Petersburg Economic Forum in Moscow to speak. Among other American speakers were going to go. And the State Department showed up and took his passport. State Department. And they took his passport. And they said, sorry, you're not allowed to fly. Can't go to Russia. And so now this, a few weeks later. And yesterday he was very outspoken about the war in Gaza. So he's been very critical of the Netanyahu government. Again, I'm not saying they're related in any way. I have no idea. But of course, we know we know how the weaponization of the DOJ has gone under the Biden administration. Speak out against things that they don't like, and this is what happens, I guess. He even posted a picture yesterday with Robert F. Kennedy, who was in Albany. He was there, and they went to have burgers, and he posted a picture on his X account. So again, I don't know more than that. At the Recovery Sports Grill in Albany. Again, I don't know. Lou NV, thank you for your $5 Rumble rant. If you don't give us the rockets and ammo, then you don't have to buy more. That'd be nice. Someone else, a lot of people saying, is Scott Ritter going to be the next Julian Assange in the chat? Bargla says, Scott Ritter going to be the next Julian Assange. I don't know.
I mean, I would think not it's kind of comparing apples and oranges, but I mean, Julian Assange absolutely embarrassed the United States government on the world stage. And so it's, that was, I think the example was made much bigger. So I wouldn't expect it to get to that level, but you never know. Yeah. True. Rich Myers, $4.99 super chat says, hey Clayton, you said you're a gamer. What do you like to play? I love AGIW, Rich says. Yeah, and I've got my little, YouTube gamer channel that I like to post videos occasionally over there as well. Just my Clayton Morris channel. I like RPGs. I like complicated things. I was talking with Philip here. Philip and I were talking yesterday about a pretty dense Atlas game, Unicorn Overlord. So, yes, that was which I went and got last night, and
did you
put about 5 hours into it last night? Yep.
Such a great game, complicated.
After your recommendation, it was such a huge recommendation. Yeah. So any Metroid, any of the games is sort of. The data is in on it. Like it really, it improves cognition. The whole thing. I know surgeons that swear by it for. Anyway, so I love it. It's a way of when this world goes crazy, sit down for a little bit and just play some puzzles, take my mind off of stuff. So yeah, I'm a big fan of JRPGs and stuff like that. Metroidvania style stuff. Just beat Animal Well. Animal Well was a beautiful game. Just beat that. And Unicorn Overlord just beat that as well. So yeah, some fun stuff there. Zelda, that kind of stuff. Stuff from my childhood, What about you guys? What do you guys like to play lately? Let's see. Effin' Rockin' says, be smart, chat. Don't jump to conclusions. Try to make wise choices. Better to be prepared not to use it than to be unready and unfortunate. Godspeed everyone in this future uncertainty. Guitarther says, all Metroid games are great. Shogi. Let's see. Let's see here. Supernova says, I know President Putin does not want a regional war, but but don't you think Putin doesn't want the flow of missiles and ammunition to stop from Iran? For sure. I mean, I'm sure that they would love to have that flow continue, but you have to remember over the past few weeks, Russia has sent an enormous amount of weapons to Iran. So it's, I think they've got a lot of weapons. Not quite sure what that flow looks like in terms of how much they're relying on those drones and other things from
from Iran into Russia. Let's see. Alex says, play puzzles and smoke weed. No, you know what? I've never done a drug in my life. I'm sorry. I've never smoked pot. I've never done that. I've never done anything. I've never done like cocaine, like Zelensky. I've never done any of that kind of stuff. So, just not into it. You know what it was for me? I'll be honest with you. Can I be a little transparent with you? Growing up, I had an uncle who I learned later had suffered from schizophrenia. Had schizophrenia, and I had heard from someone, and I don't know if this was true or not, but that because it could be hereditary, right? That, oh my God, and it was brought on. He was brilliant. And then he went to college and he started doing drugs like in the late 60s or whatever, and it triggered this schizophrenia. And that terrified me, because I thought, if it's hereditary, and if that's in me, I don't want that to be triggered. I just want to go through my life without triggering that if I can, Turns out that's not the case. I've spoken to many smart brain doctors since that said, no, that's not the case. It would have to be like your immediate family, and that wouldn't happen. But then when I learned the truth about it, it was years past doing drugs, it wasn't like past college, past all that. So now that I'm 47, I'm not going to like start doing that,
Just decide to pick it up.
Yeah, like pick up a hobby, like I'm, out fly fishing, as I'm going to start trying to do some just illicit drugs. I think that'll be really good for me at 47 with 3 kids in my family. That'd be great. So no, I've never done that, and I probably won't ever do that. Let's see here. Cat Gang says, weed is a flower, so are poppies. The thing is though, I had a friend, really wicked smart kid in my friend group growing up, and he just became like such a pothead, and then you couldn't even have a conversation with him anymore. He just became like dumb as a rock. It's like, why would I want that? Right? So, well,
I had a bunch of friends that because I never really cared for it. I tried it a couple times, never cared for it. It wasn't for me. But I had a bunch of friends that did pretty regularly, and it wasn't the fact that they were idiots. It was the fact that that's literally, it became their entire personality. That's all they ever talked about. I was like, it just got boring hanging out with them, and that's all they ever talked about. Like they would like play hippie music songs. They'd write, I wrote a song about smoking weed. I'm like, great, can't wait to not hear that.
Right. Yeah, and I really don't even drink. I mean, I'll have a beer once in a while, but rarely. Like if I do something, you go to like a football game or something like that, or something special, but it's not like a nightly thing, or here's my 6-pack every night, 2 cans a night, 3 I'm just not. But definitely like back during the pandemic, that was a little like out of hand. So it's like no more of that in my life, and I can't handle it. It's like at 47 years old, like who wants to just ruin their next day? I remember a Jerry Seinfeld joke. He's like, it's like nighttime Jerry, right? And nighttime Jerry is gonna sabotage morning Jerry. It's like, why is he staying up late, drinking, and then you're going to ruin, next day Jerry's life. And I just always think about that because it's so true. I couldn't do this show. I couldn't do the research that I do on this show, have the guests on that I have here, all the stuff that we do for this show. I mean, there's no way. There's absolutely no way if I was, if I just, start slurring my words and start doing drugs. Alexander, thank you, says, here's 22 euro super chat, says there's a lot going on, but what is going on in East Palestine and the Baltimore Bridge? Great question. I mean, I still think, of course, there's major problems in East Palestine, Ohio. The Baltimore Bridge is not, the harbor area is still not fully cleaned out. The economic ramifications of that cyber attack are going to be felt for years. People didn't want to talk about that it was a cyber attack. It absolutely was. Of course, Lara Logan was a guest on our show who confirmed that from Biden administration cyber officials who confirmed it was a cyber attack. And yet that very morning, Biden comes out and says, nothing to see here. And by the way, we're going to rebuild it and pay for it. Like, what? You're going to rebuild it and pay for it? Okay. And nothing's wrong here. And the FBI didn't even start their investigation, or the NTSB wasn't even on scene yet for a few days. How did you conclude that there was nothing to see here? Such garbage. Oh, by the way, what's going on with Maui and the land, people who aren't able to even move back, and land for sale now, massive land grab in the United States. Again, these stories that just get swept under the rug. Oh, by the way, there was an assassination attempt on President Trump 3 weeks ago. Does the mainstream media even talk about it? Can you imagine if there was an assassination attempt on President Obama or any? It would be wall-to-wall coverage for weeks. Weeks. Not even a mention anymore. Not even a mention. It's unbelievable, actually. It's the lack of care from a bipartisan attempt to try to get to the bottom of this. It's amazing. That sort of like bipartisan love fest lasted for like 2 hours, maybe if you're lucky, like 2 hours, and that was it. And then it was immediately back to Joy Reid on MSNBC. Oh, Trump faked it. It was a piece of glass that hit him in the ear. That wasn't a real bullet. It was crazy. Anyway, I can't believe that stuff is happening in the United States right now. All right, guys. Well, thank you, guys. Any other super chats here? 4 months. John Williams has been a member for 4 months, the Rebel VIP community. Am I bang? Zoran says, stop banging on the table. You're killing headphone users. Am I hitting the table? I don't think I am. Am I doing that? I'm sorry if I am. I'm sorry, but sometimes I get angry and I use my gorilla-like arms to Donkey Kong smash the table a little bit here, so I apologize. Jason Bridges, thank you for your kind super chat. Says, thank you for all you do. Keep up the awesome content. Russia should be and could be our biggest ally in all due time. They've tried to be. I know people laugh at that, right? We've had a whole amount. Think about the amount of propaganda that we've had during the Cold War about Russia. The movie Red Dawn, right? Rocky IV. I mean, think about all of just like the massive propaganda we've had to hate Russia since we were little, right? So the idea of us like partnering with them and being an ally against terror, against ISIS, it would be shocking to most people. But there's no reason why we couldn't be. And think about a country that respects the rule of law. We could be two countries that respect the rule of law. We could talk about democracy and freedom. I mean, keeping a family together. I mean, it's unbelievable, but the United States is going in the opposite direction of that. It's really crazy. Mikhail Stadius says, see who the WHO planned for today about monkeypox. The riots in the UK, not mainstream media edition, but the clips showing the migrants with weapons. Oh, yeah, they won't show you that. And then if you call it out, they'll call you Islamophobic, right? So if you talk about these gangs, these armed gangs in the UK walking around with machetes, then you're somehow racist, right? You're racist, you're Islamophobic. Okay. Well, I'm just telling you what we're seeing, what's actually happening, what's happening to people when they're being surrounded by these gangs with machetes, okay? Mr. Vendinetti in our Rumble chat says, hey, Redacted, love the show. I think it's a real pot calling the kettle black moment. Waltz and Kamala making fun of Vance and his couch lie at their recent rally. But if the right brings up Kamala, oh boy. Yeah, did you see it, like the whole like weird? They're using the hashtag weird to talk about JD Vance. He's just weird. And then I saw people retweeting that, and now it was like all over Twitter, the hashtag weird MAGA. Like, okay, so let's talk about Tim Walz, for instance, the governor of Minnesota, a guy who literally signed a law to put tampons in boys' rooms. I mean, that's just one of the things. We've covered it deeply here on our show, but you want to talk about weird? All right, you can't even scratch the surface. That's just bad. That's barely scratching the surface. All right. And yeah, there you go. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. You guys are wonderful. And thank you guys for joining us on this Wednesday. Again, a crazy day today. And we're going to kind of follow up and see what's going on with Scott Ritter and hope all is well there. I don't know. But we will keep you posted on that. So thank you guys for joining us here. We should let you know we do have a daily newsletter. We publish it 4 times a week. Just come on over to sign up. It's redacted.inc. It's free to sign up. Just put in your email address. Then you will receive a welcome email, and you have to confirm it. You must confirm it. It might wind up in your spam folder or some other folder, and then just drag it over to your inbox. So tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, you can get the newsletter, the Redacted newsletter that comes to your inbox. It looks like that. See, some things you might have missed. Plus, it's a great way for us to stay connected because these big tech platforms love to censor us, and no one can control our newsletter but us. So that way we can always stay connected with you guys, regardless of what these big tech platforms decide to do. So head on over to redacted.inc and sign up today. And then you can receive the newsletter tomorrow on Thursday edition in your inbox. And again, we try to provide a lot of value for you there as well. So go to redacted.inc. So thank you for joining us live here on this Wednesday edition, this August 7th. Crazy, crazy day in the news cycle. So stay safe, everyone. And we'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Have a great day, everyone.